Hello students, welcome back to another video, and we are continuing in our marathon studying from the CXC Economics syllabus. If you have not yet seen part 1 of the syllabus, go over to my channel and watch part 1. We are at section 3, markets and prices, and this is part 2 of the syllabus. All right, so students should be able to define or explain the term market. Let's go down to the content. All right, so we are to explain the concept of a market. So when we talk about a market, it is any place, a system, or arrangement where buyers and sellers interact to exchange goods, services, or resources, either directly or through or indirectly, other means, right? So a market does not have to be a physical location. It can be virtual or online, as long as there is interaction between buyers and sellers. Now, what are the key features of a market? Well, they are what? They are buyers and sellers, and these are people or businesses involved in exchanging goods or services. Another key feature of a market is goods or services. So if you go to a market, whether the physical location or online, items being bought and sold, you find items being bought and sold. Example, food, clothing, internet service, books, etc. Another key feature of a market is price mechanism. So prices are determined by the interaction of supply and demand in a market. All right. Now we are going to define supply and demand. Now when we talk about demand, demand is a quantity of a goods or service that consumers are willing and able to buy at various prices during a certain period of time. So demand is a quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to buy at various prices during a certain period of time. And we're going to look at example of demand. So if the price of ice cream drops from $4 to $2, more people may want to buy it because the price has been decreased. It was originally for $4, now it's for $2. So the demand for ice cream increases as the price falls. All right, so that's an example of demand. Let me repeat that example. So if the price of ice cream drops from, it was originally for $4, now it is selling for $2, what will happen is that more people will want to buy it. So the demand for ice cream increases as the price falls or decreases. Now, what is supply? Supply is the quantity of a goods or service that producers are willing and able to offer for sale at various prices during a certain period of time. For example, if the price of tomatoes goes up from $1 to $2 per pound, farmers may decide to grow and sell more tomatoes because price is going up. So the supply of tomatoes increases as the price rises. So in summary, demand comes from buyers, consumers. Supply comes from sellers, producers. The interaction of demand and supply determines the market price and quantity of goods traded. All right, so now we are going to look at the relationship between price and quantity demanded and price and quantity supplied, the laws of demand and supplies. Now let us look at the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Then we're going to look at price and quantity supplied. Now there is an inverse or opposite relationship between price and quantity demanded. All right, follow me guys. As price increases, what happens to demand? Very good. The quantity demanded will decrease. Less people will want to buy ice cream because the prices increase from $2 to $5. So the quantity demanded will get less or decrease. All right, follow guys. So as price decreased, what happened to quantity demanded? It's going to increase. So the price of ice cream originally was for $4. Now it's for $2. The price has been decreased. So what happened? Quantity demands increase. More people want to buy ice cream. Now, because consumers are less likely to buy something when it's expensive and more likely to buy when it's cheaper. Example, if the price of a movie ticket goes up from $10 to $5, would you still want to buy it to go to the theater? Yes, I would buy it because it was originally for $10. Now it's for $5. So more people will go to the movies. That means demand increases as price falls. All right. Now let's look at the relationship between price and quantity supplied. Now there is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. As price increases, what happens to quantity supply? It's going to increase. As price increases, quantity supplied increases. Consumers, they are buying tomatoes for $10 per pound. Farmers, they will want to produce more tomatoes. They're going to grow more tomatoes for the market because price is increasing for tomatoes. So the quantity supply will be increased. As price decreased, what will happen? Very good. The quantity that is supplied will decrease. So the price decreased from $10 and it is now for $4 per pound of tomato. So that means producers, farmers, they are going to supply less tomato because the price has decreased. So when you look at the relationship between price and quantity supplied, as price increases, quantity supplied increases. As price decreases, quantity supply decreases. Why is this so? Because producers are more willing to produce and sell goods when they can earn more money. So if the price, again, another example, guys. So if the price of oranges rises from $1 to $2 per pound, farmers will supply more oranges to the market. That means supply increases as price rises. Now, let's look at the law of demand and supply. So the law of demand states when the price of a goods or service increases, the quantity demanded decreases. And when the price decreases, the quantity demanded, what happens? It will increase. Let's look at the law of supply. When the price of a goods or service increases, what will happen to the quantity that is supplied? It will increased. When the price decreases, the quantity supply will increase. All right, very good. Now, let us look at, now we are going to look at the concept of ceteris paribus and what that means. Now, this term is a Latin phrase and we use this phrase in economics to help understand how one thing changes while assuming everything else stays the same. Now, in real world, many things can change at the same time, but to study how one factor affects something else, we say ceteris paribus to keep all other things constant. Now, let us look at some examples. And the first one we're going to look at is ceteris paribus in the law of demand. What does the law of demand says? Very good. If the price of, for example, apples goes up, people will what? People will buy fewer apples. Once the price go up, demand goes down. And we refer to that as ceteris paribus. Now, this means we assume that people's income, taste, and price of other fruits do not change. We are only looking at the effect of the price. Did you get that? Did you get that, guys? All right, so let us look at another example for those of you who did not get the concept of ceteris paribus. Now, let's say a student's study time increases, you're studying more. What will happen to your grades? It's going to improve. So that is referred to as ceteris paribus. We assume everything else, like the student's health, the teacher quality, or distractions, stays the same. So in short, ceteris paribus means look at one change at a time. All everything else constant. The only thing we are focusing on now is the student increasing his or her study time and the grade going up. We are not looking at, oh, maybe the teacher contributed to the student's studying time being increased. Oh, maybe um there's no more distraction, so the student, no, we're not looking at that at all. The only thing we are looking at is a student's study time increasing and their grades going up. So remember, when we look at ceteris paribus, we are looking at one change at a time. Everything else remains constant. All right, guys, so I hope you understand that. So we are going to look at, well, as I said before, the syllabus does not show us diagrams. So I want you to go to your textbook and you're going to look at a representation of the demand curve and the supply curve, if you can. I could explain the demand curve and the supply curve, but for diagram purposes, you'll have to go to your textbook for that. Now, the demand curve, and I hope you have your textbook, to show the diagram that I'm talking about. The demand curve is a graph that shows the relationship between the price of a goods and the quantity demanded by consumers, ceteris paribus, all other things being equal or remain constant. Now, the shape, let's look at the shape. Look at the shape on your diagram, guys. The demand curve usually slopes downward from left to right. This shows that as price decreases, quantity demanded increases. All right, let's look at the price. Let me give you an example. Let's say you are selling t-shirts and you started off with a price of $10. Someone comes to your store, or 5 people came to the store and buy 20 units or 20 t-shirts. The price go down to $8. People start buying 30 t-shirts instead of 20. The price keep on going down to $6 from $8 to $6. More people come into your store. They buy 40 of the t-shirts. Instead of buying 30, they start buying 40 of the t-shirt. The price drops from $6 to $4. What do you think will happen? 50 t-shirts, people start buying 50 t-shirts. So when your price was $10, that was your highest price, you only sell 20 t-shirts. As the price drops to $4, you sell 50 t-shirts. So on the demand curve, as the price of t-shirt decreases or drops, we see where more people want to buy it. So on the graph, this creates a downward sloping line. So look on the graph at the demand slope. If you're seeing a downward sloping line, that is the demand curve showing price decreases, quantity demand increases. Now, if you look at your supply curve, the supply curve is a graph that shows the relationship between the price of a goods and the quantity supplied by producers, ceteris paribus. Now, look at the shape of the supply curve. The supply curve usually slopes upward from left to right. Are you seeing that, guys, on your diagram? The supply curve curves slopes upward from left to right. This shows that as price increases, quantity supply increases, and that's the law of supply. Example, the price of t-shirts is now $4. Producers, they supplied 20 units on the market. The price goes up to $6. What happened? The producers, they supplied 30 units of t-shirt. The price keep on going up from $6 to $8. The quantity supplied, 40 units. The price go up from $8 to $10. What happened to the quantity supply? It goes up from 40 to 50 units of t-shirt. So as the price of a t-shirt increases, sellers are more willing to supply more. So on the graph showing the supply curve, the slope is going upwards. So once you see the slope going upwards, it's showing the supply curve. When you see the slope going what? Downwards, it is showing demand curve. All right, guys, so I hope you are learning. Now, demand and supply conditions refers to the factors that affect the behavior of consumers and producers, which in turn influence the price and quantity of goods and services in a market. Now, what are the factors determining the environment for price movement? In other words, what are the determinants of demand and supply? Let's go back down to our content. So we are at number 6. Now, to look at the factors determining the environment for price movements, we're going to look at demand and supply. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is what are the factors affecting demand conditions? Now, these factors influence how much of a product consumers are willing and able to buy. So in other words, we are going to look at what are the factors affecting supply conditions? What are the factors affecting demand conditions? So let us start with supply. Now, factors affecting supply conditions are, and just a reminder, when we refer to supply conditions, we're talking about the factors that influence how much of a goods or service producers are willing and able to sell at different prices. Now, the first factor we are going to look at is the price of the goods or service. Now, let's see if you remember. The higher the price, what will happen? Producers will what? They will supply more to earn more profit. The higher the price of a goods on the market, suppliers or producers, they will want to produce more so that they can make more money. The lower the price, what happen? Less goods or service will be supplied. So that discourages production because the suppliers, they will not be seen where they will be making much profit. So less goods will be supplied. So example, if the price of wheat increases, farmers are more likely to grow and sell more wheat. Or if it decreases, they will grow and sell less wheat. So less wheat will be supplied in the market. Another factor that influences supply conditions is cost of production, and this includes the cost of raw material, labor, rent, machine, energy, etc. If production becomes cheaper, supply will increase. If production becomes more expensive, supply will decrease. So if the cost of fertilizer rises, what will happen to the cost of vegetable? The supply of vegetable? The supply of vegetables will decrease. If the cost of fertilizer rises, the supply of vegetables will decrease because farming becomes more expensive. Because if you have to pay more money for the fertilizers, that means you'll have to sell your product for more. and people may not buy it. So if the cost of fertilizer rises, the supply of the vegetables may decrease because farming becomes more expensive. So another factor that influence of supply conditions is the cost of production. The more money you have to pay for material, labor, machine, it will affect the amount of goods or services being supplied. Another factor that we could look at is technology. So improved technology lowers production costs and increase efficiency, leading to higher supplies. So if a bakery installs new ovens that bakes bread faster, this increases the supply of bread. All right. Another factor that we could look at is, let's look at expectation of future prices. If producers expect prices to rise in the future, they may hold back supply now to sell later at a higher price. So if they expect prices to fall, they may want to get increased supply now so that they might get rid of their goods or services. So if all producers expect prices to rise next month, they may reduce supply now and wait to sell later. All right, so some of the factors that affects supply conditions are price of the goods or service, cost of production, technology, number of producers or sellers, government policies, and expectation of future prices. All right, guys, let's look at the factors that affects demand conditions. And we know that demand refers to how much of a goods or service consumers are willing and able to buy at different prices. So the demand conditions refers to the various factors that influences consumers' decision to buy a product apart from its price. And the first factor we are going to look at is income of consumers. So when people earn more money, they usually buy more goods. When income decreases, people have less money to spend. So if someone gets a salary raise, they may eat out more often or buy a new phone. Another factor that affects demand conditions is consumer preferences and taste. When a product becomes more popular or fashionable, demand increases. If tastes change and people lose interest, demand falls. So if a celebrity wears a certain brand of shoes, many fans may want to buy the same shoes, increasing demand. Another factor that affects demand condition is price of related goods. Now, there are two types of related goods. It can be a substitute or a complement. So for substitute goods, goods that can replace each other, example Coke and Pepsi. So if the price of Coke rises, demand for Pepsi may increase. Complements, goods that are used together, phones and phone cases. So if the price of phones falls and more people buy phones, the demand for phone cases increases. All right. Another factor that we can look at is expectation of future prices. So if consumers expect prices to rise in the future, they buy more now. If they expect prices to fall, they wait and demand decrease now. All right. So before a price hike in gas, people may rush to fill up their tanks. Another factor that we could look at is seasonal factors. Some goods have higher demand in certain seasons. For example, let's look at the demand for umbrellas. The demand for umbrellas will increase in rainy season. The demand for ice cream will increase in summer. All right, because it's hot. So those are some of the factors that affects demand supply and supply conditions. Demand conditions and supply conditions. Now we are going to look at, where are we? Market equilibrium, agreement between consumer and supplier on the price and quantity of goods demanded and offered. Now, in economics, the agreement between consumers, the buyers, and suppliers, the sellers, on the price and quantity of goods is called market equilibrium. Now, market equilibrium happens when the quantity of goods demanded by consumers is equal to the quantity of goods supplied by producers. The price at which this happens is called the equilibrium price. The quantity agreed on is called the equilibrium quantity. So at this point, there is no shortage or surplus in the market because everything is equal. Now, how does this work? If the price is too high, suppliers will want to do what? They will sell more. But the consumers, they're going to do what? They're going to buy less. So if the price is too high, and please remember we are looking at market equilibrium. So if the price is too high, suppliers want to sell more, but consumers buy less. And this might lead to what? This is going to lead to a surplus because the price is too high. The suppliers, they are putting more goods on the market. However, consumers are not buying the goods because of the price. So it leads to a surplus. Now, if the price is low, consumers want to buy more. But what happened to the suppliers? They are producing less because they're saying, oh, we're not going to make any profit. So this leads to a shortage of goods. So equilibrium is the point where both sides are satisfied. Example, let's look at t-shirts. Still on t-shirt, guys. So the price per t-shirt is $10 today. The quantity demanded is 100. The quantity supplied is 150. So the price of t-shirts, $10. Quantity demanded by consumers, consumers only want 100 t-shirts. However, because the price is high, the suppliers, they are putting 150 t-shirts on the market. But how much does the consumer want? Only 100. So that leaves us with how many t-shirts not sold? That leads to 50 t-shirts not sold, 50 t-shirts that have not been sold. So this might lead to a surplus. All right, so the price of t-shirts now is now $8. So it's fall from 10 to $8. The quantity demanded by consumers is 120 because the price as is still high, but it's from 10 to $8 now. So the quantity demanded by consumers is 120. However, the suppliers, because they still think that the price is high, $8 is a high price, they decided to put 130 supply of t-shirts on the market. However, consumers only want 120 t-shirt at $8. So that leaves suppliers with 10 t-shirts. Still, there's a surplus. What are they going to do with the 10 t-shirts? All right. Now the price of t-shirt, it falls to $6. So it has fallen from 8 to $6. The quantity demanded is going up because the price is getting low. So consumers, they want to buy more t-shirts. So they're buying 140 t-shirts, not 120 anymore. It has increased to 140 t-shirts because the price has gone down. Now, suppliers, they decided that they're going to just put 140 t-shirts on the market because the price is too low. However, consumers want to buy more, but the suppliers, they are producing less. So this leads to, this is a point where we have an equilibrium. Both sides are satisfied. So the price is low, consumers get more. Suppliers, they produce less, so we have both sides being satisfied. All right? Now, say the price go down to $4, from 6 to $4. What will happen if the price is too low? Consumers are still buying more, so they start to buy or demand 180 quantity of the t-shirts. However, the suppliers, they only supplied 100 t-shirts on the market. So that leave us with a shortage because Consumers, they want 180 t-shirts. Suppliers are saying, oh, the price is too low. We are only going to supply 100 t-shirts on the market. So that leave some consumers not being able to get any t-shirt because they have 180 being demanded, but only 100 is being supplied, leading us to a shortage. So the equilibrium would be when the price was at $6, the quantity demanded was 140 and the quantity supplied was 140. So that would be the market equilibrium. So the point where both sides are satisfied. Now, in simple terms, let's summarize what we have been saying. The markets work like a negotiation. Consumers, we want to pay less. Suppliers, they want to earn more. They agree on a price and quantity where no one has an incentive to change. This is the equilibrium. All right? Let's let us look at the impact of changes in market conditions on market equilibrium. Now, market equilibrium is a point where quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied at a certain price. However, this balance can change when market conditions change. That is, when factors affecting demand or supply shift. Now, what happens when conditions change, when market conditions change? Changes in market conditions can cause either the demand curve or the supply curve to shift. This leads to a new equilibrium price and quantity. Now, let's look at the impact of change in demand. So if demand increases, what will happen to the demand curve? It will shift to the right, meaning that consumers want more at every price. This creates a shortage at the old price, results in price and quantity both increase. So example, if a new health study shows that oranges improve brain function, more people will want to buy oranges. So guess what? Demand will increase, the equilibrium price and quantity will also rise. If demand decrease, the demand curve shifts left. That means that fewer consumers want the product. This creates a surplus at the older price. And the result of this is that price and quantity will both decrease. So example, if people switch from sugar to artificial sweeteners, demand for sugar will drop. Lower price and quantity in the sugar market. Now, we are going to look at the impact of change in the supply market on market equilibrium. Now, if supply increases, the supply curve shifts right, meaning that producers are willing to sell more at every price. This creates a surplus at the old price. Result, price falls, quantity increases. Example, new farming technology makes it easier to grow tomatoes. So what will happen? More tomatoes will be available. Price drops, more tomatoes are sold. So if supply decreases, which causes the supply curve to shift to the left, less of the product is available. This creates a shortage at the old price. Result, price increase, quantity decrease. All right, let's look at the impact of changes in market condition, both demand and supply change. So if both change at the same time, the final impact on equilibrium price and quantity depends on which curve shifts more, demand or supply. It also depends on the direction of the shift. Is it an increase or a decrease? Example, let's look at smartphones. So demand increases, more people want phones. Supply also increases, cheaper production due to better technology. So quantity increases, price may stay at the same or rise slightly, depending on which increase is stronger. All right. So let's look at, well, illustration. We can't illustrate because there's no diagram on the syllabus. We're going to look at price elasticity of demand, and we're going to look at the concept of price elasticity of demand and its determinants, concept of income, and cross elasticity of demand. Now, price elasticity of demand measures how responsive the quantity demanded of a good is to a change in its price. The different types of determinants of price elasticity of demand are, one of the determinants are availability of substitutes. So the more substitute goods there are on the market, it's equal more elasticity. Another factor that are determinant of price elasticity of demand is proportion of income spent. So the higher the proportion, more elasticity. Another determinant is time period. Longer time, more elasticity. Another one that we could look at is brand loyalty. Strong loyalty equal in elasticity demand. Now, let's look at the concept of income and cross elasticity of demand. Now, this measures how demand changes when consumer income changes. Now, cross elasticity of demand measures how the demand for one good responds to a change in the price of another. Now, so in quick summary, some of the factors that affects price elasticity of demand is, and that's A, type of goods, proportion of income, time period, addiction or habit, brand loyalty. Let's look at some examples. Let's look at petrol. So in elasticity, people still needed to travel. Movie tickets, elasticity, people may cut back if prices rise. Bread, basic brand, inferior good, demand fall as income rises. iPhones versus Samsung, that would be cross elasticity because you can have a substitute. You can't afford an iPhone, you're going to try and get a Samsung. All right. So now we're going to look at the factors affecting price elasticity of demand, which I think we did mention them, but let's do it again. So some of the factors affecting price elasticity of demand are, and as I said before, price elasticity of demand, it measures how sensitive the quantity demanded of a good is to a change in its price. Now, the factors affecting price elasticity of demand are availability of substitute. We did look at that. The more substitutes there are, the more elastic demand we will have. So if you are trying to get cola, but the price of cola is increasing, what will happen? People will seek a substitute. Maybe it's Pepsi. So people will buy Pepsi if cola is too expensive. Another factor affecting elasticity of demand is the nature of the good. Necessity equal in elasticity. Let's look at electricity. Necessity versus AirPods, luxury. So would you buy an AirPod than pay your electric bill, which is another factor that we could look at is brand loyalty. Strong brand loyalty equal inelastic demand. For example, Apple fans may still buy iPhones even if price increases because of brand loyalty. All right. So in summary, elastic demand means people are sensitive to price changes. Inelastic demand means people still buy even when the price changes. Elasticity is influenced by substitutes, necessity, income, time, and consumer behavior. All right, so now we are going to look at, okay, where are we? We're going to look at price elasticity of supply. What happens to quantity supplied following a change in price? Price elasticity of supply measures how much the quantity supplied of a goods change when there's a change in its price. Now, what happens when price changes? If the price increases, suppliers are usually willing to supply more to earn higher profits. If the price falls, suppliers may reduce how much they produce because it's less profitable. All right. So, example, if the price of wheat increases, farmers cannot quickly grow more due to planting cycles. So supply is inelastic. If the price of smartphone rises, factories can increase production by using more machines or labor. So supply is elastic. If a stadium has 50,000 seats, the supply of tickets cannot increase even if the price rises. Supply is perfectly inelastic. So in summary, price elasticity of supply shows how responsive producers are to price change. A higher price usually encourages more supply. Elasticity depends on how easily and quickly producers can change their input. All right, so now we're going to look at definition of market structure. Now, the first thing we need to establish is what is market structure. Now, a market structure refers to the organizational and competitive characteristics of a market. It describes how firms operate, how prices are determined, and how goods are sold based on factors such as the number of sellers, the type of product, barriers to entry, and price control. Now, the key elements of market structure: firm behavior and performance. Let's look at that. So, let's look at behavior and performance of firms in a variety of situations and market structure. The first one we're going to look at is number of buyers and sellers. Now, the different types of market structures are perfect competition, monopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition. So before I answer objective 19, let me tell you about the different types of market structures. All right. So the first type of market structure we're going to look at is perfect competition. Now, a market with many sellers and buyers where all firms sell identical products and no single firm can control the price. The key features of a perfect competition market structure is many buyers and sellers. It's homogeneous, meaning that they sell identical products and there is no control over price. Firms are price takers. Free entry and exit. You can enter the market, you can exit whenever you're ready. And another feature of a perfect competition market structure is that there is perfect information. Everyone knows prices and products. Example, local vegetable market, agricultural goods like wheat, corn, or tomatoes. Now, monopoly is a market where there is only one seller of a product with no close substitutes. The firm has full control over price. So, key features of a monopoly market structure is one seller, many buyers, unique product, high barriers to entry, legal costs or resource control. The firm is a price maker. Example, Jamaica Public Service JPS that provides electricity. They are the only seller of electricity in Jamaica, the only company that provides electricity in Jamaica. So what happened is that there are no substitutes, no competition, no other company that can compete with them. They are the only seller. Another one is National Water Commission in Jamaica. They are the only company that provides water to the entire Jamaica. So they are the only seller. All right. So those are two examples of monopoly market structure. There's only one seller of the product, no substitute or no close substitute. Monopolistic competition, a market with many sellers offering similar but not identical products. Firms compete using branding and product differences. Key features, many sellers and buyers. In a monopolistic competition market structure, differentiated products, brand, quality, style helps to differentiate products. Another key features of a monopolistic competition market structure is easy entry, so you can start a business easily. You can exit at your own timing. And there's heavy advertisement. Example of a monopolistic competition market structure would be a fast food restaurant like KFC, Burger King, local shops, clothes stores, hair salons. Oligopoly market structure is determined by a few large firms. Each firm actions affect others, leading to interdependent behavior. So a key features of this market structure is there are few sellers, products may be identical, high barriers to entry, firms may collude or compete with each other, pricing can be strategic. Example, Digicel and Flow telecommunications companies, airline industries, or car manufacturers such as Toyota, Honda, or Ford are examples of firms that will fall under oligopoly market structure. So it's determined by a few large firms, and each firm action affects others, leading to interdependent behavior. Now we're going to go back to objective 19, which talks about market structures. Now we know what the market structures are, and we're going to look at their behavior and performance of firms in a variety of situations. So let's look at the number of buyers and sellers. Now when we talk about market structure, we're talking about the number of buyers and sellers in a market, and the key factors that shapes how firms behave and how prices are determined. So we're going to look at the different market structures, the number of sellers, and the number of buyers and examples. So the first market structure is let's look at the perfect competition. The number of sellers. How many sellers would you see in a market structure like that? Many sellers. Number of buyers, many buyers. We're looking at perfect competition. Example, farmers selling tomatoes in a local market. There are many sellers, many buyers. So that makes it a perfect competition market structure. Monopolistic competition. In this market structure, how many sellers do we have? Many sellers. How many buyers? Many buyers. Example, restaurants and clothing stores. Let's look at oligopoly market structure. How many sellers do we have? Few large sellers. Number of buyers, many buyers. Digicel and Flow, they are the only telecommunication companies that provides service to Jamaica and other Caribbean countries. So there are few sellers, however, there are many buyers who uses this company. Monopoly, one seller, money one. Number of buyers, many buyers. Example, I did speak of Jamaica Public Service in Jamaica. They are the only company that provides electricity to the entire Jamaica. Another situation we're going to look at is types of goods and how different market structure behave and perform in that situation. Types of goods. Now, the types of goods sold in a market greatly influences how firms behave and perform. Goods can be homogeneous, identical, or differentiated, similar but not the same, depending on the market structure. In a perfect competition market, the type of goods are homogeneous, meaning that they are identical, no difference in the product regardless of the seller. The firm behavior, the firms cannot influence price. They are price takers. They compete only on cost and efficiency. In a perfect competition when it comes on to types of goods, highly efficient, lowest possible price, normal profits in the long run. Example, fresh tomatoes in a farmer's market, sugar, flour, or salt sold in bulk. When it comes on to monopolistic competition, market structure, and types of goods, there are differentiated goods, similar function, but different in brand, packaging, quality, etc. Firms use branding, advertisement, and customer service to stand out. They have some control over price, reasonably competitive. Firms make short-run profits but may earn normal profits in the long run. Example, toothpaste, Colgate versus Sensodyne. Fast food, you could have Burger King versus KFC versus a local shop. Oligopoly, market structure, and types of goods can be homogeneous or differentiated depending on the industry. The firms are interdependent, meaning that they monitor each other's actions, use non-price competition like loyalty rewards and bundle deals, can be highly profitable, may restrict output or fix prices if not regulated. Example, mobile data plans, Digicel versus Flow, which one gives the best service? Oil or cement, which is often homogeneous. Monopoly types of goods, unique goods, no close substitutes. The firm is a price maker, sets price and output level based on demand, can lead to high profits, low efficiency, and high prices unless regulated. Example, JPS in Jamaica. All right. So if you're asked about the types of market structure, these are the ones that you should talk about. All right. So we're going to look at definition of market failure, causes of market failure, and the answers that we are expected to write about for the causes are monopoly, merit goods and public goods, negative or positive externalities. All right. So we're going to look at each one of these. So market failure occurs when the free market is left on its own, fails to allocate resources efficiently or fairly, resulting in outcomes that are harmful to society. So, in other words, the market fails to produce the right amount of goods and services or distributes them unfairly, leading to waste, inequality, or underprovision of important goods. Causes of market failure: monopoly power. A monopoly can restrict output and charge high prices, leads to reduced consumer choice and inefficient resource use. Example, a sole electricity provider may charge high prices, reducing access to electricity. Another cause of market failure is merit goods and public goods. Merit goods are the goods that are underconsumed in a free market, even though they provide benefits to individuals and societies. Example, education and healthcare. Without government support, many people might not be able to afford them. Public goods, goods that are non-rival, meaning one person's use doesn't reduce another, and you can't stop people from using them. The market fails to provide these because there is no profit motive. Example, street lighting, national defense. Negative or positive externalities. Cost negative includes cost to third parties not reflected in market prices. Example, air pollution from a factory harms people who don't use a factory's goods. Positive benefits to others that the producer or consumer doesn't get paid for. Example, a person getting vaccinated protect others from disease too. Consequences of market failure: retrenchment. This is when businesses cut costs by laying off workers due to inefficiency or reduced demand. Unemployment, there are fewer jobs as firms reduce output or fail entirely. Economic depression, widespread and prolonged decline in economic activities due to low spending and production. Another consequence of market failure is rising levels of poverty. So because people are losing jobs and rising costs make it hard for people to meet basic needs. Declining welfare services, governments may lack revenue to fund healthcare, education, or housing, making it hard for people to afford these services. Next, we are to look at the financial sector. Explain the concept of the financial sector. State the role of the financial sector. All right. So to explain the concept of the financial sector, it's the complex mix or network of markets, household, businesses, government, laws, and institutions interacting with one another. So if you're asked about the financial definition, the definition for financial sector, this is the definition that you are expected to write. The complex mix or network of markets, household, businesses, government, laws, and institutions interacting with each other. What is the role of the financial sector in mobilizing and making loanable funds available from savers to spenders for consumption and investment purposes? Now, the financial sector includes institutions like banks, credit unions, insurance companies, stock markets, central banks that help manage money in an economy. Now, the main role of the financial sector includes mobilizing and lending funds. The financial sector acts as a bridge between savers and borrowers. It mobilizing savings, meaning that people deposit their savings into banks and other financial institutions. These funds are pooled together, making them available for other people or businesses to use. Example, a teacher saves $10,000 in a commercial bank. That money becomes a part of a larger pool the bank can lend out. Another role of the financial sector is making loanable funds available. Now, the bank uses these pool savings to offer loans to individual or businesses who might need money for spending or investment. So if you are saving, if you have $20,000 in a bank saving, that money is made available for people who want to borrow a loan. Example, a young entrepreneur borrows 500,000 from the bank to start a bakery, a family gets a loan to buy a house, a farmer gets a loan to purchase equipment. Now, why is this important? Now, the benefits are it encourages investment, boosts consumption, economic growth, and efficient use of resources. All right, so quick summary. The financial sector plays a vital role in the economy by collecting money from savers and making it available to spenders for consumption and investment, which supports economic growth. Now we're going to look at the functions of the financial sector. We have just looked at some of them, but we're going to still do it again. Now, the functions of the financial sector are many. All right, so we're just going to look at a few of them. One of the functions that we're going to look at is the provision of credit and loans, meaning that they lend money to individuals, businesses, and the government. It's when they lend money or provides credit, it enables consumption so you can buy goods and start your businesses. All right, example, a business borrow $1 million from a bank to buy a new machine. Another function of the financial sector is to facilitate payments and transactions, meaning when you go to the bank, you can pay for your bills, your household bills. So this makes it easier to transfer money and pay for goods and services, supports trade and daily transactions. So using a debit card to pay at the supermarket or transferring money using a banking app. Another function of the financial sector is to provide investment opportunities by offering ways for people to grow their money through stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Another function of the financial sector is economic stability and regulation. Central banks, they regulate the financial system to control inflation, interest rate, and money supply. Another function that we could look at is risk management and insurance, meaning that financial sector helps individuals and businesses protect themselves from financial loss by encouraging investment and confidence in economic activity. All right, so those were the functions of the financial sector. There are many others that you can write. Just think of a central bank or, another financial institution and what the functions are. Now we're going to look at economic activities that are not officially regulated and which take place outside the formal norms of business transactions. Now, informal economic activities consist of activities that are not officially regulated, not taxed, and not monitored by the government. These activities take place outside formal business structures, and workers often lack legal protection, contracts, or benefits. Examples of informal activities, that's informal economic activities: street vending, which means selling goods like clothes, food, or phone cards without a license; domestic work, unregistered maids, nannies, or housekeepers paid in cash; taxi and transportation services, drivers operating without license. We call them robot taxis in Jamaica. Unregistered tradesmen, plumbers, barbers, mechanics who work independently and do not pay taxes. All right, so those are some of the economic activities that are not officially regulated and which take place outside the formal norms of business transactions. Now, we're going to look at money as an item considered acceptable to be used as payment for goods and services. Now, we first need to define what is money. Money is any item that is widely acceptable as a medium of exchange for goods and services or to settle debts. Now, in simple terms, money is what people are willing to accept in exchange when buying or selling something. Now, we are to look at examples. Let's look at examples of how we use money. We use money to buy a loaf of bread for $300, money to pay for a bus ride for $10. We use debit cards to pay for phone cards. In all these cases, money is used as a means to facilitate trade and make it life easier than bartering. So, in simple terms, conclusion, money is a commonly acceptable tool that helps people exchange value without needing to trade goods directly. It is essential for working economy and is trusted because everyone agrees to use it. Now we're going to look at from bartering to modern forms of payment. Now, barter is the oldest form of trade. It involves exchanging one goods or service for another without using money. Example, a farmer might give a fisherman yams in exchange for fish. A tailor mends a shirt in return for eggs from a poultry farmer. Now, the problems with bartering is that double coincidence of wants. Both people must want what the other has. It's hard to agree on how much one item is worth. You can't store fish or eggs for long. Now, with the introduction of money to solve the problems, with the introduction of money to solve the problems of bartering, money was introduced as a medium of exchange. Money is easier to carry. It can be broken into smaller units. Money is durable and it's widely acceptable. Now, example of early money use includes shells, salt, cattle was used in early societies, later replaced by metal, coins, gold, silver, and copper. Now, as trade grew, people started using paper currency issued by governments and banks. Example, the Jamaican dollar, the US, the Cayman dollar. Banks also began offering checks, bank accounts, loans for spending, and modern payment methods. Now, The methods that we use today are instead of bartering, we use debit and credit cards. So we swipe a card to pay at a supermarket. We use mobile money using Digicel, MyCash, or Link app. We use online banking, digital wallets on Apple Pay, and we use cryptocurrency. That's Bitcoin that are used for online transactions. All right, so that's the system from or we leave from bartering to modern forms of payment. Now we're going to explain the four main functions of money. I think we did mention them already, but we are going to still look at them. Now, the four main functions of money are money is used to buy and sell goods and services, replacing barter. Money provides a standard way to measure value or prices. Money can be saved and used later without losing its value, and money can be used to settle debts or pay for goods, services in the future. Now, what are the four main qualities of money? Money is durable, meaning that it must last a long time without wearing out. Another quality of money is that it's portable. Money should be easy to carry around and transfer. Another quality of money is that it's divisible. Money should be divisible in smaller units to handle all kinds of purchases. Example, a $500 bill can be divided into 100 or 50 or $20 notes. Another quality of money is acceptable, meaning that people must be willing to accept it as payment. Now we're going to look at money supply, the total stock of money in the economy at any moment. What is money supply? Money supply refers to the total amount of money available in an economy at a specific point in time. Now, this includes all the money that people have in their hands, cash, is deposited in banks, savings, and checking accounts, can be easily used for spending or investment. So when we talk about money supply, it is a total stock of money in the economy at any moment. Now, what are the roles of central bank and the following financial institutions? We did look at a few already, so I'm just going to look at about four roles of four of these financial institutions. All right, so just let's look at the roles of four of these financial institutions. All right, guys, so we're going to start with the roles of the stock exchange. A stock exchange is a marketplace where shares, stocks of companies are bought and sold. The main functions are allow companies to raise capital by selling shares, provides platform for investors to buy, sell shares, helps determine the market value of companies. Let's look at the share market. Role of the share market. Well, a share market is just another term for a stock market where ownership in companies is traded. Now, the main functions of a share market are connect investors with companies, encourage investment in business, offer opportunities for profit through capital gains and individuals. Credit union, which is a non-profit cooperative financial institution owned and operated by its members. Main functions: accept savings, offer low interest loans to members, promotes thrift and financial education. Development Bank, a government-backed bank that provides long-term financing to promote economic development. Main functions includes funds agriculture, small businesses and infrastructure, offers low interest and longer repayment terms. Insurance company provides financial protection against risks such as accident, illness, or death. Their main function is to collect premiums from clients, pays out claims when covered events occurred, help manage personal and business risk. Mutual fund, a pool of money from many investors managed by professionals to invest in stocks, bonds, etc. Their functions are offering diversification with less risk, provides access to professional managed portfolios, helps small investors grow wealth over time. All right, guys. So now we are going to look at financial instruments and what they are. Financial instruments are documents or contracts that represent a legal agreement involving money, such as investing, borrowing, or lending. They can be assets you own, example stocks or bonds, or they can be liabilities you owe, example loans. Now, what are the types of financial instruments? We have treasury notes and bonds. These are issued by governments to raise money. You lend money to the government and they pay you interest over time. Treasury notes can be medium term, 2 to 10 years, and you pay interest every 6 months. Treasury bonds, long term, more than 10 years, you pay interest every 6 months still. Example of a treasury note and bond: you buy a 10-year treasury bond for $100,000. The government agrees to pay you 5% interest yearly, and you get back your full 100,000 after 10 years. Corporate bonds issued by companies to raise money. You lend money to the company and they repay you with interest. So Grace Kennedy, for example, issues a corporate bond to expand their business. Investors buy the bond and earns 6% interest per year. Municipal bonds issued by local or regional governments to fund public projects. Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation issues a bond to fund road repairs or builds a school. Equity securities represents ownership in a company. The most common form is shares. Shareholders may earn dividends and have voting rights. Example, you buy 100 shares of NCB, you now own parts of the company and might receive a portion of profit, dividends. All right, now we are going to look at economic management policies and goals. Students should be able to explain the role of government in stabilizing the economy. Now we are looking at the role of government in stabilizing the economy, and we're going to look at how the government helps to stabilize the economy through taxation. Now what it means is that the government collects taxes from individuals and businesses to fund public services, control consumer and business spending. Now, how does that stabilizes the economy? If the economy is overeating, too much spending, inflation, the government can increase taxes to reduce demand. If the economy is in recession, not enough spending because of job losses, for example, the government can cut taxes to boost demand. So, example, during high inflation, the government raises income tax so people have less money to spend, slowing down the economy. In a recession, it lowers corporate taxes to help businesses hire more workers and invest. Another role of government is to control the economy is through public expenditure. Now, this means that government spends money on infrastructure, services, and employment programs. How does that stabilize the economy? So, during a recession, the government can increase spending to create jobs and stimulate demand. During inflation, it may cut back on spending to reduce the flow of money in the economy. So, example, in a slowdown, the government may invest in building roads, schools, or hospitals, hiring workers, and boosting income. If inflation is high, it might delay or reduce some projects to slow spending. Another way how the government control the economy is through transfer policies, meaning that these are payments that are made by the government without receiving goods, services in return. For example, pensions, unemployment benefits, house and food assistance. Now, how does this stabilizes the economy? Now, it helps low income groups maintain their spending during hard times. It increases consumer demand and prevents poverty. For example, during COVID-19, many governments gave cash support or stimulus checks to people who lost jobs or income. Regular path payments, like in Jamaica, They offer that in Jamaica. Help poor families afford school and basic needs. Now we're going to look at definition of the following terms: national budget, national income, disposable income, national debt. Oh my. Oh, these are a lot of words, guys. But let's see if we can look at a few of them. But if you're studying from the syllabus, ensure that you know the meaning for all of these words, because you do not know which one you will see on your exam paper. But I'm going to try to go through as much as possible of the concepts. All right. So a national budget is a government's plan for spending and income. National income is the total income earned by a country's people and businesses over a period of time. Disposable income, the money a person has left after paying taxes used for spending or saving. National debt, the total amount of money the government owes to local or foreign lenders. Fiscal policy, government actions related to taxing and spending to influence the economy. Fiscal deficit occurs when government spending is more than its income from taxes and other sources. Monetary policy, central bank action that controls money supply and interest rates to stabilize the economy. Economic growth, an increase in a country's production of goods and services over time. Economic development, a broader concept that includes economic growth plus improvement in living standards, healthcare, and education. Developing economy, a country with lower income levels, limited industries, and a growing economy. Developed economy, a country with high income, advanced infrastructure, and strong industries. Balance of payment, BOP, did they ask about? Yes. A record of all financial transactions between a country and the rest of the world. Gross domestic product, GDP, the total value of all goods and services produced within a country in a year. Gross national product, GNP, GDP plus income earned by citizens abroad minus income earned by foreigners in the country. Employment, people who are willing and earning an income. Unemployment, people who are able and willing to work but cannot find a job. Inflation, a rise in prices of goods and services over time, reducing the value of money. Deflation, a fall in prices often caused by low demand and economic slowdown. Savings, the portion of income not spent but set aside for future use. Investment, using money to start or grow a business by buying assets or earn returns. Now we're going to look at the flow of money, the flow of goods and services, and factors of production between firms and households. Now, the economy works like a cycle involving two main groups. You have households and firms. Households, these are individuals and families who provide labor and consume goods and services. Firms, these are businesses. These are companies or producers that makes goods and services and hire resources from households. Now, there are two main flows. We have flow of goods and services, and we have flow of factors of production. Now, flow of goods and services includes from firms to household. Now, firms produce goods and services and then sell them to household. And this is how consumers get the products they need. For example, Grace Kennedy sells food products. The household buy and consume them. Flow of factors of production, meaning that it's from households to firms. So households provide factors of production: land, example, space for factory, labor, example workers, capital, example machines, entrepreneurship, example business ideas. So if a person works as a cashier at Digicel, they are providing labor to the firm. Money flow means it flows from firms to pay households. So in return for labor and resources, firms may pay wages, rent, interest, and profits. So JPS pay workers salaries for labor, landowners rent, and investors dividends. Household pay firms in return for goods and services. Households pay money, that's consumer spending. So a family buy electricity from JPS or groceries from a supermarket. So now you understand the flow of goods and services between um, firms and households. Alright guys, we're going to stop right here because we do not want the video too long. We'll continue in another video. Please remember to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. All the best guys on your examination.